Yeah, I just keep it steady on the magic. Do my thing, I'm healing, it's fantastic. If I fall, rise automatic. You ain't no now, you know. I'm the one raise myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100 cause she on with the truth. Been there on struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off, take off, take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off. Ooh, she bout.
What up, what up, what up, y'all? It's your girl Hannah, aka Roots High. You are watching Black Women Wednesdays on the Uprooted Network. And y'all, I'm so excited to have my girl Mihret joining us. Yo, this is about to be a dope episode. Hey Mihret, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yes, it's about to be so good, y'all, because let me tell you how we got introduced. All right. I'm a little bit of a stalker on Instagram. I'm not gonna lie. But I stalk businesses, I stalk people like who are doing interesting things. And we got introduced through the nonprofit you and Aiden work created. I should say created, not work with, created art and health. And I just thought what you guys were doing was so dope. So I reached out. I think I had connected to Aiden on Clubhouse somehow, and I didn't know that the two things were connected. And then when I found out they were, I was like, yo, this is dope. And so ever since then, we've kind of just stayed in the same circle. And I was like, yo, I want you guys on the show. I know that the stories you tell and the people you work with and the work you do is so dope. So thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to be here. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad that we could make this work.
Yeah, tell the people a little bit more about art and health and what you do there, because I, um, this surprised me. Like I was like, oh, this exists. This is so dope. So I was like, yes, we love Habesha people in this space.
Yeah, so Art and Health is a nonprofit collective where we use art and storytelling to combat stigma around mental health in the Habesha community. So, kind of what I do there is a lot of what a team of only three people on the team look like, which is a little bit of everything. Um, but it's rooted in for us, by us. So, our foundation is always culturally specific. We're unapologetically trying to serve our community in the ways that we know how to do that
Mm-hmm.
based on our own experiences. We value experience. And so it started with a lot of passion. Aiden, you mentioned her as the co founder. And it's been such a beautiful journey to see how much it's grown and how much the Habesha community is starting to really resonate. We're not really opened completely up about that topic of mental health, but I definitely see even people showing up, which I think is powerful. I know growing up the way that I did, mental health was very stigmatized. It was something that you couldn't even consider. If it was even considered, it was like right away take them back home, like the works.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm just really I'm excited for our healing collectively.
That part, that's literally what I do. I was like, y'all, I do free therapy every week. Okay. Like, what are you talking about? People are like, what do you no, I do free therapy with y'all every week. Okay, multiple times a week in different formats, right? Just because it's so important. Like that's literally the one thing that everyone has to take care of, right? Like where your mind goes, your body follows. And so I've always been like, yo, if you want to be the leader, you want to be in charge, that means your brain got to be together. So why do we like not think about mental health that way, right? Like it's actually a powerful tool. And so I like what you said about it being stigmatized, right? Like it is. Like when I when I decided to get my psych degree, everybody looked at me crazy, like, what are you gonna do with that? I like, what are you gonna do? Read my brain? I was like, maybe somebody should. Like, what do you mean? But no, it's really dope. So I'm interested to know more about that because you don't just jump into this field, right? Like you don't just, oh hey, like I'm gonna start this, right? So this whole theme, this season, I guess I'm doing seasons again now, thank God. Is personal development, and it's really the theme of the whole show, right? Is like, what is our uprooted journey? How did we get to where we're at? You know, what are the things we're passionate about? Because I feel like along that path is where we find our purpose, right? And so I'm wondering for you, how was it like this even came to be? Like, did you think you would be here, like doing this work?
That is such a good question, and it could take me hours to explain how I got here. Trust me, it was like a roller coaster of what I thought society wanted me to do and what my heart really called at.
Mm,
So, just to share a little bit about me, I grew up in a very like a small community where Habeshas were a small group of people. We are very tight.
mhm,
My sister, one of my oldest sisters, had schizophrenia,
mhm.
and back then you don't know what it is, right? You just know that there's so much that's happening with her.
Yeah.
um, and I remember that as a young person, feeling like I didn't really get what she was experiencing. There was no one that looked like me that could explain what was
Mhm.
happening. And just as a whole, the world didn't know what this was. So it was just a lot of like having go to figure out how to help her in a way that's still safe for us, because we didn't know what was happening with her. And so that was like my introduction
Mm,
to this world of like mental health. And I didn't even know there was a world then. I just knew that my sister was struggling and I loved her so much, but there wasn't much I can do. And of course, like my parents' solution to it was a very like fair one, which is like, we need to make sure we get her help. But at the same time, there was no one that was educating them in a way that's like, okay, this is what it is.
yeah.
This like blah blah blah, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I also remember like the community's response to her, and
Ooh,
us as a family, and how like othered I felt in that, and how I felt separated from the community in ways. So
mhm.
I just decided that then I just remember it's like a subconscious thing, but it stuck with me.
Yeah.
So as time passed, I kind of naturally gravitated to spaces that were more like dealing with like mental health issues, and or like I started to work within the criminal justice system in Canada. um,
Mhm.
and then I seen that, hello, it's just not my family. There's an over representation of us,
Oh,
like
yeah.
us meaning Black people, Habesha people. We're all in that, and we're just not talking about it.
Yeah.
We just are continuing to struggle alone in silos. And it started like kind of my healing journey. And instead of wanting to like work in corporate systems, which I have, I decided that I like want to continue to. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I know that when I'm in these spaces and I'm working with the like people and I'm working on myself, that's when I feel the most alive. Um,
Mhm.
and so that was enough for me to, just connect with Aiden and be like, okay, yeah, I'm in. Like, how do we make this happen? And it
Yeah.
was like one workshop after another workshop, and it really was based on me healing myself. Like that was
Mm.
part of my journey. I was equally, as much as I advocated for therapy, I was in therapy.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times when I was talking to friends or talking to clients that I was working with, it was not looking at them like they're any different than me, but we are people that are on this journey. And so that became my theme. Like I would so badly wanted to normalize therapy. I wanted to normalize the conversations about mental health. Um, and interestingly, now move forward 5-10 years, um, the pandemic has shown us how
Oh,
important,
yeah.
yeah, how important your mental health and your well-being is, and how important like prioritizing any self-work is. And it's not just seen as selfish, it's really honoring who you are and who you're meant to be. Otherwise you're going to be functioning on you're functioning at a place that's not like fair to you. It's not,
Yes.
so
That's what we call surviving, and we want to thrive. Okay, that's the other theme of uprooted. Like I've been moving from that too, and man, you said a lot of good stuff in there. First of all, I hope people were really like. I always tell people on this program, like, yo, we're gonna talk that talk, but take notes because we're dropping gems. So like, take notes. There was a lot that I want to unpack. First thing that was key to me, right, is that like I parallel so much of your journey, and we know this because we had a conversation prior offline, so y'all weren't privy to that. But it's like super dope. Every time I talk to you or Aiden, I'm like, wow, that's like me if I was in Canada. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm really wow, that's really cool because it's a lot of what you said I resonated with, right? One, this theme of the responses that we were getting. I have a similar story that I'll share one day, maybe for the anniversary, of kind of how I got into mental health. And I'm like, it's very much the same. And I want to start with going back to the community response, if we can go there, because I think there's a lot in that we should unpack. But the other thing you did say that I want to highlight too was just this feeling like you were alive doing this work, right? Because I did corporate too and I hated it. I was like, oh my God, like this is ridiculous, right? Like I'm just gonna make rich people richer and they're still miserable. Like I can't be in this space. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Um, but it was a difficult thing for me because the what you had said made me think like the community response to your family and what your sister was dealing with, right? But then now trying to work with that same community and help them heal, right? It's like this paradigm that's it's very difficult, that at least it's been difficult for me to manage because I'm like, y'all the same people who didn't want me. Like, like let me not do the whole lyrics to the song, but
I was thinking, I was there. I was there.
back then you didn't want me. Like this, it's so interesting. So let's unpack because right, like I think our community response to mental health is not the greatest, right? So I'll let you kind of start on what you think maybe is the reasoning behind that, or what you've seen start to shift or change even.
Yeah. So I mean, I realized that in like that intro, I really did put my life very like quickly in there, but
Hmm.
I wasn't trying to do community work while I was also having to go through the challenges of like my family. At that
Hmm.
time, we were in trying to figure out what's the best way we can help her, what's the best way we can support her. It took another 20 years for me to want to get into this type of work.
Hmm.
I went like there was a whole journey in between that. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But
Yeah.
the community's response was one that now, as like a mature adult person that's been through therapy, realizes is one based off like generational trauma. We
Hmm.
are people that immigrated. We are people that have a story. So our responses come from like rooted in fear, rooted of not understanding, rooted in what we know, like what we know. And this is something they didn't know. They just knew this was different. And I can't say like the beautiful part about our culture is we're not outwardly mean or we don't
Hmm.
have, but there's ways in how you make situate people feel small that doesn't have to do with anything you say. As zero
Ooh,
to do with
speak
anything you
about it. Oh, I just got triggered. Go ahead.
yeah, and so as someone like all these words that we put out there, but I am like I consider myself like I'm really heavy on energy. I am really an empath. So at a young age I didn't know those things. All I knew was like I don't like lady's energy. What did I do to her? What did my family do to her to feel like that
Mhm.
she could be so isolating, like in her way she was behaving?
Yeah.
And it also like made me reconsider like my connection to God. Like it was making me like just reevaluate everything just because I'm like we see community in church. That was for
Mhm.
me anyways, like that's how I seen our community. And I was like, but they're not being warm. It's not a response that I thought I was going to get. And that's not the whole community. Like, there's some beautiful people that on our journey that have been so super supportive, and would see my sister out and would be like the first ones to help her. Until this day, like, they are like fixated in my heart.
Yeah.
But I just have to point out, because it's something like, I share my experience and I share my story, and I'm very vulnerable in how I share, because I know this could have helped me. If I had somebody that could been like, oh yeah, this is what I experienced with my community, and my sister had this, and this is how she navigated the criminal justice system. They just didn't know about mental health. Like, I would have been like, oh, okay, like, this is normal. I'm not, like, I'm not someone that's gonna have a future of like continued trauma, based on what's happening to me now. This is just an experience and things will get better. But I didn't have that. Like, I had to figure it out. And then I went to university, and like, there's so many identity things that I had to figure out. And you're Canadian, but you're Habesha as well. Like, there's just so many things. And then this concept of, mental health always in the back of my head. Like, and that's where I, like, now, just being at this age and looking at how I look at community and how we run art and health, it's completely like, I look at it like, you think you're a misfit, you think you're this, you think you're that, you need to show up. You need to show up to art and health, because we are so open and accepting, because that's something that I needed. Like, I needed, I feel like in many ways all of us need, right? Without that, this is who you're supposed to be. You're Habesha, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that. No, because I very much relate to the West as much as I do my culture, if not maybe a little bit more to the West. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And some of it I want to unlearn, like, voluntarily. I want to unlearn. Like,
Yes, heavy on the volunteer. Okay, you can take this. You can have this. I don't need that. I didn't had it for 15 years. It didn't do me any good. Like, you can keep it.
yes.
Wow. Yes. No. That's yeah. We move so much in alignment. So it's like, I'm like, wow, is this what I sound like? Like, I'm telling you, I really keep doing that. I'm like, yes, yes, because there's so much truth in that, right? Like, heavy on the generational trauma, right? Heavy on the generational trauma, and then heavier on us being afraid of what we don't know, and letting that fear, kind of push our behavior and our attitudes towards people that are different than us. And I tell you all the time, I'm like, fix your face. Like, just fix your face. I know you don't mean it, but and I've had this problem as well, but just fix it, because I see the judgment, I feel your judgment, and you wonder why people don't want to be around you or talk to you, and it's because they can tell you're not accepting. Um there's a reason why we say children and dogs, right? Like, have the best judge of character, because they don't need to listen to you verbally. They're not worried about that. Your body gives away what you're feeling and thinking all the time. And so if you're unaware, if you're not paying attention to that, then it's very easy, right? Like, to continue to make people feel that way. And that's something I always constantly check people on. Like, even my mom, oh, it's our favorite activity. Like, she'll be, I'm like, no, I didn't like that. Like, like, no, Ma, you can't do that. You can't talk like that. What do you mean? Because this is what it translates to, right? That's the other part, is like, Tigrinya for me, right? Isn't that like, English is not a good language. Let me just start there. Like, it does not translate well to all these other cultures, right? Like,
Mhm.
I feel like every other culture that I'm familiar with, like, they have very rich languages, very descriptive, and all of these things. But they don't fill their words with a lot of fluff, right? Like, they're just get to the point. And that does not translate well in English. Like,
Mhm.
everything sounds harsher, like, and meaner, and all of those things. And so I do say that too, like what you were touching on about um just the small things that people do that can make you feel isolated. And we already feel isolated. We're already a minority, right? We're already a minority within a minority within a minority. And so that is, I hope people took notes on that. Like, please stop making us feel this way. But I do find it admirable, because that's the same thing, right? With Uprooted, like, this is for the place for the disenfranchised, right? Like, the people who are on that journey still, right? Like, we're a little bit ahead maybe of some people, but there's still a lot of ourselves that we're figuring out. And so I'm really glad that you touched on that as well, because I really I really did struggle. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really struggled through college, um, and still now trying to understand what does it mean to be from the diaspora. And I said it in a different interview, but that feeling of not quite feeling enough. So your validation of like you can be both, and is the word we're looking for. You are this and that. Not enough is, just take that out of your vocabulary. You can be and both. So I know that was confusing for some people, but those are therapy words I use all the time. And, not but, and. So, right for that, Jim. But I do want to also ask you a little bit more about um, your traveling through corporate to nonprofit. That jump of supporting yourself and being a businesswoman and having to hustle and do a couple things, because you do have another business as well that I wanted you to share with the people, and how you're like creating a world where you are living and doing the things you love. So do you want to introduce, um I'm gonna say it wrong again after you just told me, Ayele.
There you go, Ayele. Yeah,
You did
yeah,
it.
yeah. So just like everything else, Ayala started like as a passion. I was traveling back home a lot, and I seen like, and then when I would travel again in, other places like Europe or wherever, everywhere else, North America even, and just how much of our cultural imprint
Hmm.
was on the fashion or just how they make baskets and everything like that. And I remember the specific time where I was in London and I'd gone into a store and it was like, like things that look like gabi, like everything in like baskets. And the person that was there, who I ended up talking to, was the owner. She's this white lady, and she's telling me, she's like, "Oh, yeah, these are bohemian and they're made in wherever." And I'm looking at her and I'm like confused because it looked like it literally could it I'm very confident it probably was gabi, right? Like
Hmm.
and there was other like baskets and just things that really resonated with our culture. And I remember her telling me, and she's profiting off this. And I felt so uncomfortable. I felt
Hmm.
like somebody was stealing from me, and I don't know why I had this reaction. It was probably because I was like, before that I was in Ethiopia, and I when I go to Ethiopia, I like usually am building schools. I'm like in the rural ends of Ethiopia.
Hmm.
And I remember how the woman would make baskets, weave them by hand, takes days, and they would sell them for like little to nothing.
Hmm.
And when I was having conversations with them, I'm like, "Oh, like how much money do you make off this?" And one of the ladies would say, "Well, collectively we can buy injera."
Yeah. Oh, like my whole heart just like sunk a little bit. Like it irritates my soul, like on a different level too. So I'm with you, sis. Go ahead though.
Yeah, so that was like very in my mind while I was in Europe, and this lady is selling hers for 100 something dollars.
Hmm.
And that felt so like injustice all over again. I wanted to like tell her, I wanted to share with her these things. And in that moment, I'm like, that's not going to change anything. Like, I need to do something actionable. And I didn't do anything actionable. I let it sleep in my mind for like 2 more years. And
Hmm.
COVID, blessing that it was during that time, is it allowed me to sit.
Hmm.
I'm someone that's like constantly on the go. I have, I'm saying yes to things that I shouldn't be saying yes to, also trying to be social. Like, I do the most, right? And COVID had me sit down, and so I went kind of like, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to start it. And that it
Hmm.
took on a whole journey on its own. Like, there was so many like imposter syndrome that I struggled with, all these things, right? And I never would have known unless I was trying to start something from scratch. So that brought out a different Mihret. Like, that brought me a different type of like challenges, where before I was thinking like, oh, mental health is so unrelated to even trying to launch a business. But then when I started to launch a business, I was like,
Yeah, you said, hold on, let me take a seat because baby, those problems will show right back up.
yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's all interconnected.
Hmm.
And I've just started it. It's very much, like I said, a passion project. Basically, I'm trying to bring the love of like my culture and my passion, put it together, and sell like beautiful bags. things that are more sustainable, things that are practical. I don't like to overconsume. I'm
Mhm.
someone that's, I want to use something. Like if I'm buying it, I want to be able to use it. And
Mhm.
why shouldn't it have like a cultural imprint that that I love, right? Like shout out to
Yeah.
Shop Gonjo. Like just so many great things.
Yes. Oh, Mela, she's one of my favorite. I love her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just like based on her what she's doing as well. So that's kind of like what Shop Ayele is rooted in.
Mhm.
The idea of that, global markets should be able to access Africa, and they should be able to make money over there as well.
Mhm.
We just don't do that well, and I'm trying to figure out how I could put my footprint in that.
Mhm.
And so that's Ayele. Um, it's
No,
still
that's
in the process. It's still in there.
is there is there a meaning for Ayala? Like, what is it? Like the name? Is it a like? Because I'm
Yeah,
bad at this.
I know. So Ayele is my mom's last name.
Oh, okay.
So, she's my inspiration behind this.
Aw.
Her dad was uh, someone who made gabi like by hand, and
Mhm.
she always shared her stories with me. And I know that if he had the same talents and lived in the West, he would be owning something huge, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
as a kid, I've always like hearing about my grandfather, and I also see how much like of her I have in me. So I'm like, you know what? This is something that I is my like something that I'm proud of, and I'm proud to like also say like it's influenced by how so much of my mom, right?
Yeah. No, that's so dope. Ironically, the background picture for this segment, that's me wearing my grandma's dress. So it's like, yeah. So it was like for this project I did, and I was like, yeah, like we need to preserve this culture. So I'm really glad that that's the story there, because it's
Yeah.
really important. Like I literally went into H&M the other day, and I'm not a shopper. I don't know the last time I went in there. But I wanted to find a birthday dress, and I saw these white dresses that looked eerily familiar. Like I was like, is this our clothes? Like I literally said, like I was on Clubhouse and I was like, I'm about to PTR this. I was like, I'm about to change this picture because this is somebody's like Elfie. Like like this is like, but without the design, it's just straight white, And I was like,
Yes.
wow, interesting. And I see it all the time, right? Gucci put out the sandals, and I was like, we paid $2 for that, barely, not even dollars. Let me not say dollars, okay? Two, but like you know what I mean? Like those are plastic and they sell them for 200, right? Like they tried to sell what were like the kabas where you wear for your weddings, like they were
Oh,
trying to sell those. And I was just like, I'm so tired of like seeing not just like our culture but like African culture all together collectively constantly being used and abused and thrown away. And it's just like it's like, yeah, it breaks my heart and my soul. So when I hear people who are like you, who are like, all right, I'm gonna stop complaining, I'm gonna do something about it, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, like I'll support that. Like I'd rather, you know what I mean, like half my closet is everybody else's like products anyways, and I'm
yeah.
cool with that. Like I have no problem getting dressed in the morning because I'm like, yep, who do I want to support today? Like it's like my favorite thing. It's like, yep, cool, this is great. Like I can do that. As soon as y'all start making me like, the dresses to go out in, it's a wrap. Like I'm
Yeah.
never shopping anywhere else again. Like that's my goal in life is like, can I find a way to never shop at corporate again? Like that would be amazing. Um, so I'm manifesting that. So yes, we love this. Y'all make sure you are supporting. Like I do this on purpose too, right? Because like make sure you're supporting people who are supporting you. Like everything she just said. Can we go back to I build schools? Can we go back to that? Like you just kind of dropped that in, and I was just like, hold on.
I've lived a life.
Yes, I was like, hold on. I remember there was something else I wanted to go back to, and I was like, did she just randomly say I build schools? Interesting. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, I've lived, okay? These are called healing journeys in my life. So,
Mhm,
my dad is as like he's very much a humanitarian. I grew up under a humanitarian lens.
mhm,
So when he got like established and is able to kind of feed us in a way that he was comfortable with, he started to think about like he went on a trip with my he used to take us back home, and this one time he went on a trip with my
mhm,
older brother. They were in a rural part called Yergadam, and my brother was like shocked at the conditions of the school, which it was not a school. It was just
Yeah.
literally like something over and you sit on rocks.
Mhm.
They don't have proper desks. It was just really sad to see for my brother. And someone coming from the West, he was just like, why? It was like a
Yeah.
simple question. Why? Why would this not, this doesn't make sense, Dad? Like, what's this
Yeah.
happen? And my dad heard him and he tried to give him an explanation then, but he came home and it stuck with my dad. Like, yeah, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Um, so he started small with us. He started taking away like Christmases, and he said he would say like every Christmas, instead of giving you guys money to buy another new pair of shoes, whatever, just know that this is going towards like building something for somebody else back home.
Mhm.
And obviously, I was in high school. I'm like, "What? I need a new pair of Air Forces. Like, this sounds crazy. Christmas break. Like, how am I gonna come in with the same pair of shoes that I had before Christmas break?" It's
Yeah, like you gotta be fresh. What you talking about? Like, hello,
I,
I gotta survive here. These kids are ruthless.
yeah. I was like, I need therapy now for this. Like, I
Oh
yeah.
man.
So that was kind of like how he started. So then after that, that kind of started taking on a life of its own. So he started sharing that with people at his job, and his job. Um, Surprisingly started sharing it with people in the Habesha community. The Habesha
Mhm.
community was like, where are we going to do it? Blah, blah, blah. It would never like actually pop off. So then he
Yeah.
ended up going to his work, started sharing it with people there, and they were instantly like hooked and they wanted to, in any fundraisers, whatever. So the first school came from that, was basically just from
Mhm.
people's like giving a little bit. So we were able, so then at that time, I just was like, I'll come back home with you guys. Like, I just want to go back home. I've never really been. It's time that I see where I was born,
Mhm.
etc. So I went back home, and that's it. I was hooked. Like, it was a drug. I've never felt so alive. I've never felt like a sense of cleansing the way that I did. I've never, I seen people that look like me.
Mhm.
Literally, like, I looked at myself, I was like, "I could be her, I could be her, I could be her." They just
Yeah.
haven't gotten the same opportunities, based on, where they're at now. And since then, it just lit a fire under me, and I wanted to continue to support my dad to do this. So, as a result, we were able to connect with Rotary. We got, like, kind of like an energy towards it. So,
Mhm.
in the end, we ended up building 3 schools, 3 or 4 schools.
Dope.
Yeah, we ended up building like, it's also important that we give them play, like allow them to play. So we put like the kids playground there, and
Mhm.
then we built like a state of the art healthcare clinic.
Oh.
Yeah, because once we started, it was important to us. We weren't telling that community, like our community there,
Mhm.
what they need, but instead for them to tell us what they need. So
Yes.
that we realized, like, the women were saying, like, kids were dying unnecessarily, like, at birth, moms are dying, the babies were dying, very much preventable.
Mhm.
So through Rotary, we were able to bring, like, a physician out there. He did his own assessment, and, we got the backing of a donation, a huge donation that
Mhm.
allowed us to build, like, a beautiful, huge clinic, um, and it was all rooted in passion, nothing else, like, and
Yes.
so that was my catalyst to, all the endeavors that I do now,
Mhm.
'cause that was, like, right out of university that I was able to do that. So that's how.
That's, like, so dope. No, really and truly, I was like, "Do we have the same dad?" I'm starting to get a little bit freaked out now in this interview because 'cause I'm like, "There's a little bit too much in common." Like, I don't think I realized all these other things. But no, really and truly, I think that's amazing and dope and just shows the power of starting, right? Like, what was it? And we talked about this a little bit offline, right? Just the need to share these type of spaces where you're talking to other people who are doing the type of work that we're doing, to really inspire and help each other, right? And like I have like a group of friends, you know what I mean? So like we kind of text each other here and there. And I think yesterday after my live and like again I was sending out positive messaging and things. My friend texted me, Benyam, he's so funny, and we both always send each other the same shit at the same time. Like we'll always both be doing the same thing. It's so weird. And I texted him back and I was like, "Yo, I just did this meditation on the key to your success is application." Right? It's like it's not in all the thoughts and all that, right? Cuz like how many times have you met the smartest person in the world that doesn't do anything? Like they just sit there, like they just think all the time, and it's like that's great, right? But like if you don't put any of that into action, then like you're just living in your head, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's hella dope that y'all started that way. My dad did something similar actually too. So I was like, maybe they did work together. Who knows? Because my dad did the same thing. I think he started with buying the supplies too, like the notebooks, pens, books, like papers, like
Yeah.
the basic stuff. And when I would be there in the summer, they would go and they'd buy all the stuff and then they would drop it off to like different schools. And then he eventually did the same thing with the hospital clinic. Like
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, they renovated and I can't remember which hospital they did it at. But he's done, yeah, we had the same father, I'm pretty sure. Because like every single thing my dad has done has been to like help the community in whatever way, but exactly in what you said. Stop trying to tell them what they need. They know what they need. Like they know what they need. They don't know how to get it. And they don't know that there's things available to them that already exist, right? They're trying to create things that already exist. And it's like we know they exist because we have access. And so like the key for us is like how do we give our access to them? And like to me the key or the answer there is mutual aid, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah, everything that, like, that project taught me, and just, like, how intentional my father was, in doing what he was doing, it really did set, like, a precedence in how I approach projects, whether it's me working at corporate structures or I'm doing nonprofit work or even friendship, like, it really boils down to, like, what's your intention with what you're doing? So, it wouldn't make sense, to go into a community that you think you're supporting and helping without
Mhm.
talking to the community, like, genuinely, right? So, it sounds simple, but that's the same thing with, art and health, right? Like, we don't come in we're always like, our DMs are open because
Mhm.
the conversations we wanna have is not based on, um just like what we think is powerful, what we think is important. Of course we are very in tune with our emotions, and there's certain things that are going to, like, we want to have these discussions around, but if the community is not feeling that, then
Mhm.
let's talk about what the community wants to talk about it, but we're going to do it in a way that feels safe, it feels empowering, it's understanding of the other person,
Mhm.
and that you're sharing this space and you're going to be sharing this life. So be kind, right? It's all these things, because that's the environment that you want to exist in. Yeah. So it really just comes down to, like, how I was able, like, not how my dad navigated that. I
Mhm.
didn't realize really impacted in how I kind of am now moving in these, like, several
Yeah.
entrepreneurial passions that I'm doing.
It's so weird that day you realize you became your parents. Like you were like, dang it. Like I thought I was doing such a great job. You're just like, nope. You just at some point you realize you're your parents. Like there's so many things, but you get to decide, right, what you get to do with it.
Yeah.
Try hopefully to improve upon those things and learn from their lessons if they decided to tell you. I That's another thing I tell my parents. I don't know how your relationship is with yours, but I'll be like, well, if you don't teach me, I'm gonna learn the hard way. Like, like if you don't tell me the truth of like what you actually experienced or what you went through, then I'm gonna learn the hard way because you think you're saving me from it, by hiding it, but it's just not gonna work. So, and now we're learning that as a collective. So it's like great, right? Like all of us in the horn are just like, so this is what our parents were really doing. Like this is what happened. Okay, like it's like the veil is taken off, right? And you get to learn and now step into their role of like, well, they stepped up and they helped wherever they could, and so you see now that all of us like kind of step up and take over whatever they were doing and trying to remix it in our own way. So I think it's really dope. Um, where you're taking this. Like, I'm really excited to see where your shop goes. I really, like, when you were talking about it, I thought about Tom's, because that's a model that I've like
Yeah.
studied. And I was like, yeah, that can go so much further when it's an authentic person actually leading the initiative, you know? So I'm really excited for for what else you come up with, because I'm just like, man, she about to solve a lot of world problems. Like, this
Oh
is
man.
this is gonna be great, right? Like, it, because there's a group of us, right? Like, it's a massive energy and momentum that I feel. But a lot of what you said is key to that, right? Like, going back to the fact that your mental health is very much tied to your abilities to succeed in these businesses, in these projects, right? And that kind of leads me into the later half of this interview of like, what advice would you give to that younger self or that person that's trying to get into it? Because we're kind of talking about it on a large scale, but it's quite a jump to like leap into something and learn and be like exposed to all of your insecurities. They're like, great, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. This question, I've heard it asked. I've watched people answer it so beautifully. I've listened to enough podcasts that have
Yes.
answered this question, and I can only speak to where I'm at right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
in this moment, where I'm at, what I would tell my younger self.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been very different 5 years from now and what she needs to hear. That's how I see it, because I know what I know when I know it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I and that's how I'm kind of leading my life. So for me, to my younger self, I would say like be nice to her. Like she just have some compassion. Take it very like be easy on yourself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very hard on myself, right? Like that, and that shows up in ways how I, you know, people please in some places. I'm overly accommodating in other places. Things that I've learned about myself that I've been able to kind of like work through, understand all these things. So I would say like just be easy on yourself. Like you'll make mistakes. You've made mistakes. You will continue to make them until your dying day. You're going to continue to make them.
Mm-hmm.
And just be easy. It's fine. Just be nice to her.
Yes.
That's
Yes. No, I think I said something similar, and then Rem just said something similar. And I love this idea of us as Black women starting to give ourselves just softness. You know what I mean? And grace and rest. I'm always pushing rest. Okay,
oh
listen.
yeah.
Please go rest. Take a nap. Like, I'm queen of naps. Lay down. I'm queen of telling people put your feet up. Like, rest. Like, you deserve rest. Like, I feel like I'm resting for ancestors I don't know. Like, they didn't get to do any of that, and they should have been able to. And so I'm like, nope, this nap is for you, grandma. This was for you, because I'm sure you didn't get to take enough of them, you know, and I'm still
Yeah.
just as productive, you know, as I would be otherwise. And so I think that I love that, like this idea of softness, because I'm tired of being angry, you know what I mean? And like holding on to that energy, right? Of just feeling miserable, or like, oh my God, like the world is ending because this didn't go perfectly. Like, this really not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hope that's what people learn through this pandemic. The world didn't end. Like, we're still going with these crazies in leadership, but it's still going. So you failing a test is not the end of the world. You know, it really, really is not. I think the end of your world is the day you stop, right? Like, that's it. And so until you get there, keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it'll get better eventually. No, I love that. Um yeah, you said I know what I know when I know it. I still That's like a Will Smith bar. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was a Will Smith bar. Like, I was like, I know what, like, I have to say it to myself like 3 times in my head. I know what I know when I know it. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, actually, yes, that's very much true. Cuz I think I listened and I heard all this advice when I was younger too, and I didn't take heed, right? But like the power of repetition or repetition. Wow. Is that eventually it'll sink in. You know what I mean? Like one day you'll be like, oh, that's that thing that like they used to say. And now it makes sense why they say it, right? Like it's super dope. So I love that. I love that answer. Hopefully people take something from that. Because I'm gonna have to meditate on that later for sure. I'm like, okay, this is a big concept. Um, the last question that I always love to ask, and because you've been doing amazing,
Thank you.
is what is it, knowing all of this, I feel like I learned a lot about you, that you would want like your legacy to be, if you can kind of put this into maybe a theme. I feel like you're a theme person too. Like
Oh, that's a very great question.
mhm.
Um,
I know you guys. You do a lot of stuff, so like I struggle with that too. Is like okay, so I try to make mine generic. You know what I mean? So it's like it's over encompassing.
yeah, I think I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. Like I could give you a BS answer right now,
Hmm.
of what I think that I want for my legacy, but I'm just figuring it out. Like I think I am the best version of myself at this time right now. And I pray that like it will just open me up to know exactly what mark I want to leave on the world as a whole, but also on the like little people that are beside me, my nieces and my nephew, and like my community and those people that I don't know and walk by me on the streets. Like I'm so aware that legacy does not need to be this like big achievement. I just don't know what that would be leaving. I do know that it's rooted in a feeling, um,
Hmm.
as opposed to a like an achievement of sorts or whatever that is. I know it's maybe how maybe like made people feel when they came in, but I don't know. Like I'm still working on what that looks like. So
Yeah, no, I feel you because I change all the time. That's why I like made like a very generic one because I was like, this is gonna be over. Like this is encompassing, you know. And so I make mine really long, where I'm like, I want people to feel seen, right? Like that's like my number one thing is like I want people to feel seen and that they're important and they matter. Because I think if you can start there, then maybe we would stop having such angry, miserable people around. But yeah, no, I think that's really beautiful because normally what I like to do is try to affirm people's legacies.
mm,
um and it like it's super dope that you're giving people an opportunity to just be, right? It reminded me when I interviewed Benyam, like for the first Black Men Speak Sundays, and when I asked him, he was like, I want my legacy to be limitless. And I just was like, huh? Like, like I was like, oh, you are a game changer. Like I was like, I knew you were the right friend to have, right? Like, like you kind of do. And I feel that way about you too, because I'm like, wow, like they get it. Like, like they really get it. Like they're really understanding like life is in the present, right? And to like live your days as you would, your last, you know what I'm saying? And I think that that's really key to what we're doing here, right? Like it's yeah, legacy is so interesting. I have an interview coming out with Gabby, so by the time they see yours they'll have seen hers. But yeah, she had kind of a similar response. And I was
mhm.
like this idea of legacy is like being made in the present. And so what you're doing every day, right? I was like, man, I love you artistic people. Like, yes. And I was just like, hell yeah, because it really is. Like what you're doing today is going to, be what's there tomorrow, right? And I'm trying to even think thematic, like what you're doing is all surrounded with this theme of service, right? Of being of service. And I think it's so beautiful to meet another person who I don't really care the means. I just know that I want to keep helping people, right? And like being action oriented in that. And I think intentional about um helping people that look like you and that you're using that likeness, right? Because representation matters. And that's so key too. Like, imagine what it would have been like for us to have another little girl, like, you know what I mean? Or like someone, I had a couple aunts, right? So I got like a couple leads, but it it wasn't on a large scale, and we had to go searching for it. And you're trying to provide a space and just be a person that's like reminding people of that every day, that like if I can do it, you can do it. And I think that's a really beautiful legacy. I don't think it has to be defined. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, you just live one life, right? Like and I just want to know I lived it. And I want to know that without the exterior pressures, with what, social media now, that it's a whole new challenge that we have to like try to compare ourselves to. I just want to know in my small being, and who I am and who I'm supposed to be in this world, is really true to who I was meant to be. And I can say like I fought the other way. I've tried to be like corporate. I worked in corporate for long enough where the universe told me time for you to
Mhm.
go. Like literally, like time for you to go. You have to shut this door. You're gonna be making a lot less money. There's so many sacrifices that you're gonna do, but it will feel right. And
Mhm.
I've done that, and went back to try to do this other like corporate gig or something that I think is like the right thing to do. And I've done that many factors in my life, relationships, work, with my family,
Mhm.
everything. So I'm a person that learns from experience. I'm a person that learns through living, through mistakes, through all this. So when I talk from my experience. Like I talk, and I don't think we give that enough value. Like
Mhm.
your experience. Yes, you could have all these accolades. Yes, you could have went to X school, and those are very important. But there's just some things that are just naturally exude from us. And if you can go there and find that, everything else will connect. And that's how I've like that's my little bit.
Yes. No, I love it. I really hope people were taking notes, because that is really beautiful, and it's so dope. And the last thing I wanted to share with you, because I really am like, man, like we were meant to meet each other, because when I created Uprooted, right, it started as rooted. And I don't know if you noticed it, but like you kept using that phrase, this interview, and you kept saying things like rooted in love, rooted in passion, rooted in this. And I kid you not, I don't think I have the right notebook with me. Let me see. If I can find it and show you right now, you'd be like freaked out. But I really drew, by the way, I'm a passion planner mommy, okay? Like passion planner mommy. Or like at some point they're gonna have to sponsor me. Um, oh, it might be this notebook. Oh, it might be. I don't know if I'm gonna find it, but I drew out like the tree, like uprooted, and I drew out the rooted tree, and I really wrote all those phrases: rooted in passion, rooted in love, rooted in this, like, and I wrote all of those things. And so I think it's like super ironic that that's like the phrase that you kept using. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. This is like exactly what it should have been. Oh, I wish I could find it. I like had marked it down. You know how you like bookmark your pages?
Yeah.
Oh, look what I found. I found my 5 year, 7 year, 6 year plan. Oh my
Yeah,
God. I have
very nice
so
to
many. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I'm going to go through this notebook now that you brought it up, because that's the other thing. When the universe sends me a sign, I'm like, oh, go back and revisit that one. Like someone brought it up for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to
Yeah.
make that like, how they have a second picture you can add on Instagram. Like this will be
Yeah.
like a conversation, and the second picture will be
Yes. Oh, you be thinking, because I just found the other page and I had wrote this down, rooted, and I said I want a world where women are encouraged to study and build wealth outside from being dependent on men. And then I wrote today, Black women matter. I wore my shirt. So it's like I really move in that alignment, right? And like exactly what you said, I want a space where people can feel at home, and I want to build a space for my community, that creates a blueprint for others. And so, yeah,
I love it.
we out here, girl. I was like, we out here. We doing the work. We're in alignment. We're doing what we need to
We
do.
exist.
You
Yes, we
know,
do. We
we're doing
exist.
all of those things. And I'm like, man, this was an episode full of, for me personally, affirmation, you know, and just alignment and the universe really does just kind of keep giving you those signs and brings you the right people as long as you keep moving in that way. And so I hope people are taking that away. But also just thank you for coming on, man. Like this is such a dope episode. Like I'm like, wow, like I never know fully what I'm gonna
Yeah.
walk into with these conversations. And people are like, are they scripted? Are they planned? Do you give them the questions? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, man, this has been amazing. I'm always shy to do these kind of things, like have a conversation. So I appreciate you putting me on your platform, and I was able to actually show up. It's one of those like I can check it on my list because it's not something that I'm like naturally comfortable doing. So this
Yeah.
whole conversation felt so safe and so easy. So I appreciate you for that, and I appreciate everything that you actually do. Whether offline, online, I just want to celebrate you genuinely. And I don't know how many, I'm sure you get this all the time, but I want to make sure I voice that because you are like, you're a gem for many reasons. I've known that since the first conversation I had with you. And this is just the beginning. So I'm really excited to see where this takes you and where you end up on this like journey of life. And I'm just so blessed to know you.
Oh, look at if I could like I don't know if the blushing is coming in, but no, thank you. That's really sweet and it's yeah. I'm getting better at just receiving it cuz I'm
Yeah.
like yes, thank you for real cuz it is it's the work, it's the grind and I'm like starting to celebrate myself with it all too and no, I really appreciate that. And I'm excited cuz I know there's going to be a lot of beautiful things that come out of this. So yeah, everybody make sure y'all are following. Okay. Do not forget to subscribe, like, share this video, but also make sure that you are tapping in. Okay. Our girl Mihret, she is running Art and Health. Y'all, if you're in Canada, please tap in. What are you doing? Okay, tap in. And I'm gonna have to look at this shop. I'm moving, but I'm gonna need some things for my new spot. Okay, so
It's in
make sure you
progress. It's in progress.
yes, no, it's okay because I'm gonna. By the time I need all the stuff for my space, you gonna be there, sis. Like, so make sure you guys are following. Okay, shop Ayele. Okay, make sure y'all are following. We gotta support our own. Support those who support you. And this is, another episode of Black Woman Wednesday. I hope y'all took your notes. I hope you're leaving inspired. Thank you again, Mihret, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace out, y'all.